on to our first conversation of the morning. And joining us on the line is the General Manager of the FCB Foundation, Katie Andrews. And we're talking social entrepreneurship in South Africa. And you know, we're looking at it from a point where do we know exactly what is supposed to happen when we talk about social entrepreneurship? Why do we need it? And does it work? So those are just some of the things that we'll be talking about. I mean, it's definitely not a magic bullet that will eradicate constraints of non-profit organizations that they experience, but it does offer potential shifts in civil society into a different way, really, of doing things. And it's a bit hard to define exactly what social entrepreneurship is. And to try to help us do that and look deeper into it, let's welcome on the line Katie Andrews. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning, Quena.
How are you this morning?
Hi. I'm fine, thanks, and yourself?
Great. Thank you very much for taking this time to talk to us. And maybe as a way of foundation, let's start there. Do we understand what a social entrepreneur is, what social entrepreneurship is all about?
Yeah. I think in previous times it was a bit of a confusing world to navigate. But I think now in 2019 we've got a pretty good, solid definition of what it actually means to be a social entrepreneur. So I would go with the main definition of what a social entrepreneur is a person who establishes an enterprise with the main aim of solving a social problem. So basically what that means is that it still has a for-profit factor to it. So it's registered as a for-profit company, but the main aim is not to deliver on only profits. The main aim is to solve a social problem.
Is it something that we as South Africans understand and have fully embraced, as it were?
I don't think so. I think it's something that we do, that we are focusing more on, but there are still so many opportunities in the social enterprise world because, let's face it, in South Africa, we do have so many social ills. So there are a lot of areas where social entrepreneurs can fix these gaps. So if we just look at, go right down to what are the sustainable development challenges faced by South Africa, there's an entire area around that. So if we look at chronic unemployment, the low national skills and education levels, still a very high HIV and AIDS prevalence, high crime rates, limitation of basic services, infrastructure, and these are all problems that they don't really have profit-making potential or a requisite market in terms of corporate entities. So, for example, while ABSA has the ABSA Foundation, their whole core is not to, solve the problems of South Africa. So that's where social entrepreneurs come in, and they have the passion and the skills to be able to see where services are needed and apply those services in these problem areas.
So generally, entrepreneurs are disruptors, as it were, people who think outside the box. But when you talk about social entrepreneur, you have to look more into the issues that affect the community, as it were, which one would say that they're almost there for all to see, but it's just about finding the gap to fix those issues, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. And I think also, what happens a lot is that people come up with a solution, but they don't necessarily see the problem first. And I think where social entrepreneurs work really well is that they see the problem and then find a solution to that problem. Whereas a lot of the time in the entrepreneurial world, we come up with a solution and think, how will this solution solve? Let me find a problem to work on. Whereas here we have a whole bunch of problems and we have innovators and disruptors that come in and say, how can I fix this problem?
So in your case, did you choose to be a social entrepreneur, or is it something that happened along the way?
In my particular case, it's something that happened along the way. I think another key element to social entrepreneurs are your characteristics, your wants, and your values and your purpose in life. Is often social entrepreneurs are not materialistic. They're not money focused. However, that's not to say that we don't make profit. I mean, we still are, people that want to make money, we want to earn money. But our core focus is also at the same time as doing that to want to help communities, the world, make this place, make the world a better place. So while, yes.
And I think that is the big difference that needs to come out in that, because the general perception when you are a social entrepreneur is that you don't necessarily do it for the money or for the profit. But any entrepreneur that goes into any form of business, it's trying to definitely make some money out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely that to it. But the greatest, I think, driver for any social entrepreneur is actually the social change, is that you want to make a difference. So you wake up every day not looking at the bottom line, so what profit you're turning over, but is your model, is your solution, is your product, is your service actually changing something from a social perspective? So are you saving lives? Are you easing up infrastructure problems? Are you bringing poverty alleviation down? Are you creating easier solutions to people in marginalized communities? So if that is the core mandate of the social enterprise, then that is the focus. It's not how many noughts are turning over at the end of the month. But while that is still important, because social enterprises still need to be sustainable.
What then, Kate, would you say are the challenges facing social entrepreneurs in South Africa at the moment?
I think that's exactly what it is. It's while you're trying to make a sustainable difference, but also navigate this world of governance and sustainability and impact. So there's a whole minefield of different elements that are always in play. So while you need to make a profit in order to be sustainable, you also have to make sure that your impact is real, that you are making a difference. And I think a big problem to that is startup funding. So, and that would also, what happens is, well, you're registering your entity, whether you establish yourself as a for-profit or a non-profit company. So if you're a non-profit company, you are able to access grant funding, whereas if you're a for-profit company, you have to access investor funding. So there's also a lot of technicalities around the structure of your entity, and often there is no access to this kind of information, especially for a startup social entrepreneur that doesn't have perhaps a legal or a tax or or guidance in that respect. So it's where do you access your startup funding?
And I guess that's where, as you say, the big challenge is in terms of even beyond just social entrepreneurship. In entrepreneurship as a whole, funding is one of the key issues, and especially for somebody when we talk in social entrepreneurship who is looking at it where you're benefiting the community and you still need to get some form of startup funding, it makes it even a little bit harder.
Absolutely. And I think especially in the social enterprise world, we are looking at, usually 1 to 3 people that are just like any entrepreneurial opportunity. And you have to be absolutely, and this is across the board in terms of entrepreneurship. You are everything. You're the finance person, you are the marketing person, you are the monitoring evaluation person, and the governance. Everything, is held within one human being or a few human beings. And that is also, so that access to resource can be really challenging. And then when we have social entrepreneurs, that drive to really kickstart your change is huge. So when you have everything else coming down, that's a big challenge.
So when we start looking into the fourth industrial revolution in South Africa, would you say that social entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurship are currently adopting, or rather adapting to the fourth industrial revolution, to make sure that we stay on top of the game and stay relevant, as it were?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think that all of us are thinking about it, if not already doing it, and looking for ways in order to get on board with the fourth industrial revolution, or those that are starting out within that revolution. So whereas a lot of us are digitizing, there are many social entrepreneurs that are starting off digitally and realizing that that's where the solutions lie. However, we also have to look at, whatever kind of service or gap that is trying to be filled, because it's not always, in a South African context, if we go off into rural KZN and we're looking at a digital solution, it's not always going to work. So while I think it's something that is definitely thought about and worked on, it's not always the solution.
And what areas in South Africa, maybe key areas, where would you say that there is a need for social entrepreneurship and social development, as it were?
Are we talking about geographical areas?
No, in terms of the issues themselves, yeah.
Okay. I would definitely say unemployment, number one. And that is a big, factor, is that social entrepreneurs have an opportunity to create jobs. And then, of course, in education is always an area where social entrepreneurs can get involved. In health. So again, when we talk about the fact that South Africa still has such a high HIV and AIDS prevalence rate, there are a lot of areas where SEs can get involved. Crime rates, again, if we talk about a social ill, there's already been, I think, a lot of work in terms of what has been done from a social entrepreneurial element, but there's still a lot more. And then infrastructure is where can social entrepreneurs fill that gap in terms of infrastructure and making things more accessible to the vast majority of South Africans.
We are in conversation with Kate Andrews, General Manager of the FCB Foundation, which works exclusively with non-profit organizations and foundations. And just on that, Katie, if we might just switch gears a bit and tell us a little bit about what you do as the FCB Foundation.
Okay, so I have two roles in my social entrepreneurial life. One is I run a consultancy called Enza Into, which is a social development consultancy focusing on fundraising and communication strategies to the nonprofit sector, and then also looking at how corporate companies can access their core skills in the social development world. So if you are if you have a core skill set, for example, like an advertising agency, how do you provide those resources to the nonprofit sector? So that's where my second role comes in that I run a foundation on behalf of FCB Africa, and we provide advertising and communication skills to the nonprofit and social enterprise sector, so that they have the same access to marketing as a big brand would. And my belief is that advertising and creativity really can catalyze human behavior, so why not use that for social impact?
And for those who might want a little bit more information about the two roles that you play, where can we go to get more information? Is there a website? Can we follow you on Twitter and so on?
Absolutely. You can find the website details for FCB at fcb.co.za. And on that landing page is a button for the foundation. So a microsite comes off there and has all of our details. And then you can also follow me directly on Twitter. And my Twitter handle is quite bizarre, but it is what it is. It is KT minus 1.
Okay.
And that's the actual word, not the symbol.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, Katie, minus 1. Thank you
There we go.
very much for taking this time to speak to
Yes.
us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for bringing up such an important topic.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Katie. That's Katie Andrews talking to us, the General Manager of the FCB Foundation.